My mom wants nothing to do with me because I picked my dad during the divorce. I know it sounds bad, and I have a lot of regrets. Everything was really hard after my parents got divorced when I was 13. Before that, I had a happy childhood and was closest with my mom. The divorce hit me harder, and it did my older sister, who seemed to take it in stride. After the split, my mom moved into an apartment and fell into a deep depression. She drank a lot. And everything felt like a mess. Our custody arrangement was 50-50, but the schedule was tough. I had to switch houses every few days, and with my private school uniforms, I was always getting in trouble for forgetting things. Then my mom moved 45 minutes away from my school. They gave my sister a car to drive me, but since I played sports and she didn't, I often ended up waiting around after school. Sometimes I would just go to my dad's place instead. I asked if I could stay with him on weekdays and my mom on weekends. At first it seemed great, but I noticed my mom seemed less fond of me. My sister was supposed to drive me, but with her own commitments, I often had to call my mom for a ride, and she couldn't always help. I felt like I was spending less time with her, and I could see her growing closer to my sister. Things came to a head when I had a big game during my sophomore year. My mom didn't come because she was taking my sister prom dress shopping. I was so anxious about it, and I played horribly. I felt forgotten and hurt, so I stopped going to her house. We still called and saw each other during holidays, but it wasn't the same. Recently, I've been feeling down. I lost a friend, and my dad's new girlfriend moved in, making me feel unwelcome. She gets upset if I don't clean, but when I do, she acts snippy. It's confusing and stressful. On the other hand, my mom is doing well now. She remarried about a year ago, and he has 2 kids, Jake and Emma, who are nice but still strangers to me. Before Christmas, my mom asked if I would give one of my old American Girl dolls to Emma. It wasn't an heirloom, just something from my cousin, and I didn't feel comfortable giving it away. I kept asking about Christmas plans, but she didn't share much. When I texted her on Christmas Eve about giving her a gift, she said she'd reach out after the holidays. That hurt in a way I can't explain. She had never ignored my calls before. I thought it might be about the doll, so I tried to give her space, but I still texted her a Happy New Year. That's when my sister got really upset and drove out to yell at me. She said I needed to stop bothering our mom since I picked Dad. I was shocked. I didn't know the truth about the divorce until then, and it felt like a betrayal. I got upset and told her to leave without giving her mom's present. I haven't told my dad about any of this, but it's been weighing heavily on me. I never meant to hurt my mom, and I feel terrible. I'm torn about whether to reach out to her or follow my sister's advice and leave things alone. I can't shake the feeling that my mom has moved on and doesn't have space for me anymore. It feels like it's all my fault.
My boyfriend called me selfish for wanting him to leave his boys' night early due to my grief. Where do I go from here? I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. I spent a long time reading through every single response, and I'm incredibly grateful for the advice and shared stories. Your condolences meant a lot to me. Now for the update. Shortly after I posted, one of my boyfriend's friends reached out. He asked if I had made the post because he had something to tell me. I confirmed I had, and he shared that before my boyfriend left their gathering, he had been complaining about me to everyone. He painted me as someone controlling and irrational, claiming I was using my mother's death to manipulate him. I learned that throughout our relationship, he had been sharing our arguments with his friends, twisting the truth each time. I'm not close with his friends, and he had even told them I was faking my personality around them. It's ironic, considering he was the one speaking poorly about me. The only reason his friend reached out was that he had seen this pattern in my boyfriend's past relationships and was starting to feel uneasy about it. When I confronted my boyfriend, he initially denied everything, but eventually admitted the truth. He broke down in tears, saying he didn't understand why he acted this way, but that he loved me and couldn't live without me. I packed my things and told him I needed time to think. I was going to stay with my brother while I prepared for my mom's funeral and sorted through her belongings. What he didn't realize was that I didn't need time to think. I had already made my decision. I wouldn't be coming back. Before hearing from his friend, I had genuinely thought his behavior was out of character. I assumed he was struggling with my mom's passing too and didn't know how to cope. But now I see he was a different person around his friends, and what seemed unusual to me was completely normal for him. It frightens me to think about what I might have missed if I hadn't posted and learned the truth. I can't imagine how he would react if another life-changing event occurred, putting something else above my needs. To everyone who wanted an update, I want you to know I have completely removed him from my life. No amount of tears or empty apologies could change my mind. He wasn't there for me when I needed him, and that's enough. The lies he told and the stories he spun are terrifying. I know my mom would have been furious if I stayed with him after all this. I'm grateful for this little corner of the internet and the future it helped me avoid.
My brother has convinced my mom that I, an openly gay man, am trying to steal his wife. What do I do? I'm reaching out for advice because my family situation has spiraled into chaos. My brother has somehow convinced everyone that I'm in love with his wife and trying to manipulate her against him. My brother and sister-in-law have been married for 4 years. This all started a couple of months ago after a heated argument between my sister and my sister-in-law about her pregnancy. I stood up for my sister-in-law during that blow-up, and since then, my brother has been relentless. He accused me of interfering in women's business, and I may have said some harsh things in response. Afterward, my sister-in-law reached out to apologize for the situation, but I reassured her that she had nothing to feel sorry for. We ended up having a deep conversation about how my sister had treated her during her first pregnancy. My sister had moved in with them to help, but she was overbearing and critical of my sister-in-law's choices. Tragically, my sister-in-law suffered an ectopic pregnancy and needed emergency surgery. Instead of understanding the medical necessity, my brother and sister blamed her for losing the baby, making her feel like a failure. I tried to explain to her that what happened was not her fault and that she shouldn't feel guilty for saving her life. But somehow, my brother interpreted my support as flirting. He told the family that I was envious and trying to take his wife, and they believed him. Now, my mom, who is the only family member I have a good relationship with, has scolded me for betraying my brother. What frustrates me the most is that my family has been estranged from me because I'm gay. I've been openly dating another man for 3 years, and my brother has made it clear he doesn't want me around his family because of my lifestyle. So how can they believe I'm in love with a woman? I understand why my dad and sister would jump at the chance to believe something negative about me, but my mom? I thought she would see through this. I wonder if my sister-in-law misinterpreted my intentions. I only wanted to support her, not make her uncomfortable. It's disheartening to think that my family, who has always struggled to accept me, would turn against me so easily. I've been at peace with my distance from them, but now I'm questioning everything, especially my relationship with my mom. Has anyone else faced something similar? Is there a way to salvage my relationship with my mom and help her see my brother for who he really is?
My parents sent me an apology letter after I cut them off. It wasn't what I expected. I'm 28, and nearly a year ago, I made the difficult decision to cut off my parents after enduring years of manipulation and control. Growing up, I was homeschooled under strict rules about what I could read or watch. They would even mark out parts of books that made them uncomfortable. When I got my first phone at 19, they installed tracking software to monitor my texts and emails. I remember my sister having tantrums, and they would force her to stay in her room, shutting the door while she cried. I also struggled with ulcerative colitis, which led to my colon being removed at 18. During that time, I fell behind in my schoolwork, but my parents called me lazy for resting in bed with severe pain. They restricted my diet, and I barely got proper nutrition. Despite their control, I found an online community where I could connect with others, mostly without their knowledge. I even met my first girlfriend through this community, but she broke things off, unable to handle the chaos my parents created. Eventually, I met my wife and eloped without telling my parents until after we were married. They believe she has harmed me, which adds to the tension. When I cut off contact, I asked for an apology for everything they had done. On Christmas Eve, I received a card that felt more like a letter. They expressed how they thought they did their best as parents and still don't believe they did anything wrong. They even blamed my ex for my struggles and claimed they never hurt my wife. Reading that letter hurt deeply. After 4 years of trying to explain how their actions affected me, I finally reached a breaking point. I had hoped for an acknowledgement of their mistakes, but instead, I found justifications and blame shifting. They still don't understand why I feel hurt. It's a painful realization that reconciliation may never happen, and that thought weighs heavily on my heart. Update. My ex-wife wants me to be with her in her last days. It's been almost 3 weeks since I last shared my story, and a lot has happened since then. My ex-wife, who I've known since I was 10, cheated on me, but is now dying, and wants me around before she passes. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who offered advice and shared their experiences with me. Taking your suggestions to heart, I had a long discussion with my ex. I reassured her that no matter what, she will always be my first priority. I made it clear that while I wanted to say my goodbyes, I wouldn't act like her husband. It would be more like reconnecting with an old friend. I also promised I wouldn't spend the night or be alone with her. After our talk, she seemed more comfortable with the idea of me visiting. My sister, after a lengthy discussion about my role during the visit, agreed to the boundaries my ex and I set. A week later, my sister and I arrived at our old home. It felt surreal, and while memories flooded back, I didn't feel sadness or anger. When I saw my ex waiting for us in the living room, she cried as I walked in. Some might think she was faking it, but even though she was still strong, it was clear something was wrong. I hugged her, and we talked for a few hours while my sister prepared lunch. I shared pictures of my kids and stories about their lives. Honestly, I didn't know how I would feel seeing her again, but it was like reconnecting with an old friend. There was no resentment, just warmth. Walking through the house, everything was as it had been over a decade ago. I noticed our wedding photos still framed on the walls, but it didn't feel right to comment on it. We had lunch together and played board games, reminiscing about the times we spent together as kids. It was genuinely nice. As I left around 6, she was sad, but understood. When I hugged her goodbye, she whispered, "I love you," and expressed happiness that I found the joy she couldn't give me. That hit me hard, and I fought back tears. I promised to see her again soon, and she asked if I could bring my kids next time. I agreed and left to pick up dinner for my family. When I told my wife everything that happened, she was happy with the outcome. Bringing home her favorite food certainly helped. She agreed to let me bring the kids next time, which felt like a step forward. Overall, seeing my ex again was a great experience. I feel like I needed it, and would have regretted not doing so. Thank you to everyone who offered advice. Please remember, my ex made a mistake and has paid the price, but that doesn't make her an evil person. This will be my last update.
My son is afraid to be alone with my girlfriend. I'm a 53-year-old father, and my son, who is 23, is autistic. He's fairly independent. He works part-time, stays home alone, and even does his own shopping. For almost a year now, I've been with my girlfriend, and at first, my son really liked her. He would talk about how cool she was and how much fun they had together. But lately, things have changed. Whenever they're alone, there seems to be some incident. I come home to find her upset about something he did, while he sits there with his hands over his ears, confused about what went wrong. I usually side with him because I've had many conversations with her about how I need her to communicate with me before she tries to discipline him. Yet, I keep discovering that she's taken it upon herself to ground him or enforce rules without telling me. Just last week, while I was away, she took his phone and iPad, locked his toys in his room, and told him to stay on the couch, all without informing me. When I found out, I returned his things immediately, and she was furious. It's like she becomes a different person around him. They get along well when we're all together, and I can tell my son still has affection for her, even if she seems harsh when it's just the two of them. Since that incident, my son has been asking if he can come to work with me or stay at the library for hours while I'm gone. He insists it's not about avoiding her, but it's clear he wants to escape the situation. I'm at a loss. How can I stay with someone who can't be alone with my child? Every time I bring it up, she gets defensive, claiming I'm too soft and that my son is manipulative. I just want to find a way to keep both of them happy. It's not unreasonable for me to want my son to feel safe and comfortable around my partner. How can I fix this?
AITA for blowing up and confronting a woman for not controlling her kids at my mom's wake? This story takes me back to a painful time in my life. My mom passed away from cancer when I was just shy of 17. She raised me on her own, so it was always just the two of us. Losing her left me completely devastated. At her wake, the atmosphere was heavy with grief. My mom was laid out, and family and friends gathered to pay their respects. Much of that day was a blur for me, but I remember the room being dizzy at times, filled with people who loved her. During a quieter moment, I noticed two kids, a girl and a boy, probably around 8, approaching the casket with their mother. I didn't know her, but that wasn't surprising. My mom had touched so many lives. After the kids paid their respects, they returned to their seats. As the event continued, I saw the kids sneak away again, this time without their mom. They were giggling and running back and forth, whispering excitedly, "I touched her, me too." It hit me hard. They were treating this moment like a game. I stood up, overwhelmed by my emotions, and shouted, "Have some respect. This isn't the place for kids to be running around." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at me, then at the kids, who began to cry. The mother looked taken aback, and after a moment, she gathered her children and left in a huff. I stepped outside for some air, needing a moment to collect myself. When I returned, the conversations had resumed, but I could feel the eyes on me, the whispers. I wondered if people were judging me, or if they understood my grief. Over the years, I've shared this story with mixed reactions. Some agree that wakes aren't appropriate for children, while others think I should have let it go. It's a memory that still haunts me during sleepless nights. So, I ask you, was I the jerk in this situation? I am losing all my hope in my fiancé after his parents died. My fiancé has been struggling for a year now, ever since his parents tragically passed away in a car crash. To give you some background, he always felt a deep sense of obligation to them. As the youngest of 4, he watched his siblings succeed, going to prestigious universities and landing impressive jobs. For the past few years, he turned his life around, losing about 80 pounds, finding new hobbies, making friends, and landing a well-paying job. He even earned his PhD and proposed to me, making his parents incredibly proud. That was just 2 weeks before the accident. After the tragedy, he tried to cope by renting a lodge in the mountains to clear his head. I supported him, unsure of how else to react. When he returned, he told me he had been experimenting with various substances, hoping to reach some sort of enlightenment. While he may have experienced a shift, it feels like he's been stuck in a dark place ever since. He's gained back the weight, now around 290 pounds, and has become increasingly nihilistic. We've tried therapy, both individually and as a couple, but he approaches it with cynicism, refusing to accept any help. We even canceled our wedding because it didn't feel right without his parents. I've poured my energy into supporting him, but I'm starting to lose my feelings for us. Working out together, which once brought us closer, now fills me with resentment. He stopped caring for me and lost interest in everything, including intimacy. We've only been intimate a handful of times this past year, and I find myself feeling disconnected. He didn't even notice when I lost my job and took 2 months to find a new one. Whenever my parents visit, he either becomes overwhelmed with sadness or leaves the house. I'm at a loss. I love him and don't want to leave, but it feels like he's given up on life. What started as grief seems to have turned into a refusal to engage with the world. I genuinely can't understand why some believe it's normal for someone to lose everything after a loss. I've done everything I can to help, but he won't accept it. I'm burned out, not heartless. I love my fiancé, but I need to find a way forward.
I left my boyfriend alone while he was having a breakdown. My boyfriend is 5'2", and while I don't care about his height, he's clearly very insecure about it. When we met on a dating app, he claimed to be 5'9", but when I met him, it was obvious he wasn't. I'm 5'6", and he was shorter than me. I chose to overlook it because I enjoyed spending time with him. But as we got closer, his insecurities became more apparent. One night, after a few drinks, he ranted about how women are shallow and how he felt he had to lie about his height to get a chance. He even shared that he hadn't kissed anyone at 26. I reassured him that it didn't matter to me, and we moved on. However, as our relationship progressed, he would accuse me of looking at taller men. I hadn't even noticed until he pointed it out. It made me realize he was the one staring at tall guys, especially those with shorter girlfriends. One time, a tall waiter upset him, and he accused him of trying to hit on me. For a week, he couldn't stop crying about it, asking if I would leave him for that waiter. There were other odd moments too. He would text my friends to check if I was being unfaithful, and sometimes he would kiss me too passionately in public. He even had panic attacks over my boss being tall. Last night, after a night out, he was much more intoxicated than I was. He could barely walk and ended up getting sick. When he tried to initiate intimacy, I declined because I didn't feel comfortable with him barely conscious. He became sad and started asking inappropriate questions about my ex, the only guy I had dated. Things escalated quickly. When I answered honestly about my ex's height, he lost control. He threw things, punched the table and wall, and sobbed while hitting the floor. I felt scared and ran out of the room. Growing up with a physically abusive father made me fearful of aggressive behavior. Today, he was angry with me. He said I didn't love him because I didn't comfort him and that I must be repulsed by him for declining intimacy. I'm left feeling guilty and confused about how to process all of this.
My fiancé tried to get revenge on her childhood bully, and it turned our lives upside down. I lost all respect for her, and I think we are done. I'm a woman in my 30s, engaged to another woman in her 30s. I'm sharing this because the situation feels so absurd. I'm both furious and disgusted with my fiancé, Ella. I doubt our relationship will survive this, and I've already started looking for new living arrangements. Ella and I have been together for 5 years. We both struggled growing up as queer kids, but she had it harder. Ella identifies as butch and has always been a bit of a tomboy. Last year, she started seeing a therapist she found through an anxiety support group. In hindsight, that was a terrible decision. Her therapist seemed to reinforce Ella's beliefs, telling her she was right and everyone else was wrong. Ella began to fixate on a girl from her past, Bev, who had teased her in middle school. Bev called her a pig for belching in the lunchroom, and Ella decided she was the root of her anxiety. I tried to explain that it sounded like the boys encouraging that behavior were the real bullies, but Ella wouldn't hear it. Her middle school years were tough. She was the gross and dirty girl nobody wanted to be friends with. What she went through was awful. But now she was blaming Bev, a girl she hadn't seen in decades. Ella has ADHD and is a major people pleaser. So I understood how she could get caught up in her feelings. For months, she talked about confronting Bev for her part in her trauma. I thought it was ridiculous, but her therapist supported her. Weeks ago, I discovered that Ella had found Bev on Facebook. She began stalking her, calling her workplace to label her a sociopath, contacting the police to check on her kids, and making wild posts under a fake account. She even left negative reviews about Bev's job. Things escalated when Ella confronted Bev at her workplace and recorded the encounter. As a result, she got arrested and now faces harassment charges. She had been proud of her actions, sharing her pro-revenge story online where younger people encouraged her behavior. Her actions became public and she lost her job working with kids. Ella insists her behavior stems from PTSD, as suggested by her therapist. I couldn't handle it anymore, so I moved in with my family. I never imagined she would act this way. I reached out to Bev to apologize, and she begged me to leave her alone. She even apologized for what she said in 6th grade, but I told her she didn't deserve that kind of blame. Ella was furious when I mentioned that I might have reacted similarly at that age to someone making disruptive noises. This entire situation feels absurd. Ella is acting like a victim, but I see it differently. Nobody is on her side except for her online supporters. I've never been part of something so chaotic, and I think it's time for me to cut my losses.